So we're moving into the life cycle now, having completed the construction or the installation of the project. We're still in a common data environment, but now we're producing an asset information model. Up to this point, we've had a PIN, which is a project information model. And again, we define roles and responsibilities, and we think about our information exchanges. So no change there. Now, to this point, I just thought I'd drop in a bit of government strategy, because really, the life cycle is what this is all about. And this is the holy grail that the Cabinet Office and the government and BIS are after. Because basically it's about the public sector using asset information in an intelligent way across the entire public sector. So it drives efficiency, it's consistent information, it's structured data, which enables all sorts of things to happen across the public sector estate. But it drives efficiency. And that really is what's behind the use of BIM in the construction industry. And if you get hold of the Construction 2025 report, and this now sets out it's ramped up the targets that we had from the previous construction strategy in terms of the sorts of reductions in greenhouse emissions, lowering of costs over the life cycle, faster delivery, and also this target, I think this one's really interesting because this starts to recognise the contribution of the construction industry to GDP, UK PLC. We play, on a good day, we're worth about 10%. By 2025, we'll be a lot less than that, but GDP could well be bigger. But we'll be hopefully working a lot more efficiently. So again, this is another way of looking at the life cycle. We're familiar with all those stages now. Just moving around, whoops, too fast. So we're just moving around the life cycle, doing the different things. Conceptual design, documentation, fabrication, construction, all that stuff. Into operations and maintenance. And then in the whole life cycle, the operational phase, lots of different things can be happening. We can be thinking about how this building is used, how it's changed, decorated, maintained, all sorts of stuff. Actually, I was just looking at Rob, actually. How are the tweets going, Rob? Okay, good. We'll do a count at the end. We'll see whether you reach the target. So, okay. You might come across, in fact, it's worth looking up this document by a guy called Richard Saxon, who's a past president of the RBA and I think chair of Constructing Excellence. And it's called Be Valuable. If you Google it and his name, you should be able to get it as a free PDF on the internet. And basically, Richard talks through what's called the 1 to 5 to 100 rule, which is if we look at the relative cost of designing, construction, maintaining and operating a building over its lifetime, which could be up to 100 years or even more, then the operational cost can be up to 200 times the cost of actually building it and designing it in the first place. You can argue about the figures, but whichever way you look at it, you end up with a big number over here. So it means if we make some clever decisions here in design and construction, and even if we shave 1% or a fraction of percent off this figure here, we could save our clients millions. You know, making a saving in, say, energy consumption or carbon emissions or maintenance and replacement strategies. Those sorts of things over the life cycle can make a big difference. And the interesting thing is, I believe that we're moving to a time when clients are going to focus more on this than they are on this. And the reason is because energy costs are going up, oil is depleting, resources are depleting, we've got climate change, which is causing us some issues. There's all sorts of things going on that we need to think about that affect the operational life cycle of all the assets we create. So I think we're just on the cusp of moving to that point now. When the energy costs have gone up just that bit more, I think it'll start to make people think, particularly for owner-operators. People that sell on, they're not bothered because they just, if you're buying the house, they don't care. They just sell you the house or the office. But if they're owning and operating it, then the running costs will become much more important. And then this is a diagram from 1192 part 3, and I haven't covered up this one because you'll recognise it now, because here we have stages, here we have the production of the information, and here we have the life cycle. And there are these interventions. So the 1192 part 3 process is a little more ad hoc, because basically you're not quite sure what's going to happen, because you take over the asset at handover. You might want to do some minor works, say redecorate this room and replace the carpet. You might want to do some maintenance, replace all the light bulbs, change the projector, fiddle with the acoustic panels perhaps a bit, or the lighting. You might want to do some major works. Actually, we'll take the floor out, take the windows out and remove that screen and make this a whole open plan space. You might transfer the ownership. The university decides to sell the building, and somebody else comes along and they decide to turn it into flats. And then at some point, somebody decides to buy this building and demolish it because the site is worth much more to build a 200-storey residential block on it. And we'll be into Blade Runner and everything else at that point. So that was a joke, but that was okay. So basically the life cycle is a lot more unpredictable, but the 1192 part 3 calls these triggers, but basically the process would be sort of the same at any point, because the BIM, the asset information model, the AIM, will be still updated. It will be current, because your facilities managers will be walking around and they'll be keeping on top of things and all the rest of it. And then information will be taken out of the model, used by the team that are doing whatever these interventions are, and then they update the asset information model and just carry on. And that's really how these fit together. So we've got 1192 part 2 here and 1192 part 3 here. And it's the life cycle again. We've talked about it, so it's quite familiar. These are the different stages, these are the interventions, so it's fairly straightforward.